Just to start, just to start out with. Oh, I need sleep. Just to start out with, I thought I would have another note on the thing. Wait a second. Where did I have this? This one. A few days ago, I made a video post about the whole pirate software thing, and it's actually somewhat popular. Look at that. And I don't want to get into the drama of it, but there was a nice coincidence I wanted to point out.
Call it by name. The functions you called out are part type create are built in, allow you to define a particle. The functions below this directly reference different aspects of this particle effect. These cannot be modified, but they can be wrapped, but this wouldn't be
That depends a lot on the language and engine, if it handles memory for the user or not. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it 1997 and we're still allowing programmers to decide how to allocate memory? Dog, we haven't done that for over a decade, okay? You don't even know what RAM is. Let's be real, okay?
efficient.
One, among these crowds, many people may wonder, why would you think it's a good idea to make another systems language? Haven't we moved beyond that technologically, right? Oh, you're manually managing memory like it's 1970. Why is that a good idea? Why would you even want to do that? And you know, I'll preemptively say the same things that everyone says to start, which is for performance and simplicity. You know, in the games industry, our performance demands are very tight, but a lot of what I will do in the rest of this talk is to justify why that's an okay trade-off to make.
And both are kind of correct, you know. Destiny is correct that programmers haven't done that in a while. And we just kind of magically assume that it works. And it's a solved issue when it's really not. I'm using a dynamic language for whatever reason, because I'm not on the Jonathan Blow level. It's going good. Henrik or Boris. Hang on. Get this in here. Does it work? This works. What was I saying? So he is correct that programmers can't do that anymore. But I guess the point of pirate software is he thinks he's doing that when he's not. He thinks he's on that level, on the Jonathan Blow level of things. But nope, he's not. And that's a problem. And the entire discussion that has apparently even entered the bigger streamers in this situation is that they think they can pass judgment on that, and to a certain degree they can. Yeah, it is really messy, and this whole thing, I mean, he's exposed by a real software dev, and it's like coding Jesus who has done like 4 or 5 years of C++, and at the start of his video he holds up various books that he's read, and it's the same thing that pirate software does when he mentions that he has been at Blizzard for 8 years. Like, people just think that you can hold up books or talk about how much time you've spent in a company and now that makes you the expert, but no. That's really not what's happening. There's a big fly in here too. I have to kill that later. What pirate Jesus? what coding Jesus is he's just starting out, and he's read all the books, and he thinks all that theory will get him somewhere. When in reality, he's picked one of the more degenerate languages that started out a lot of very bad, a lot of bad patterns that we are still trying to grow beyond. And I'd much rather listen to somebody who spent a few decades honing their craft and getting better, just getting good, instead of somebody who is just out of school, who thinks all the theory makes you an expert, when it really does not. And once again, to say the same caveat that I mentioned the other day, I'm kind of on the lowest rung as a web developer. It's not a prestigious thing to be. But I think I picked up over 16 years a bunch of things that at least let me pass a little more substantial judgment on things like this. So I can at least tell if somebody is just speaking from, what would that be, a kind of academic posturing instead of real long-term experience. Well, the problem is not the language. The problem is the ecosystem and all the higher level stuff like Java or C++. They usually bind you into certain ideologies. And it's very easy to get stuck into those ideologies and just assume that all these layers of abstraction that you layer on top of each other are programming, when most of the time they are just the way that other people have set up their environment. And every single one of these decisions can, in the end, bite you. And this is why people like Jonathan Blow still insist on things like manual memory management, because at some point you have to understand what your computer is doing if you're a programmer, and you should have an interest in what your computer is doing. And I'm kind of doing a thing in between where I know that I am not at that level at all, but I know that all the solutions that are provided to you in the higher level languages most of the time aren't really solutions. They're just the way that other people dealt with certain issues. And most of the time those are just distractions from the actual problems. That's the issue. Because what I've been doing now with Layer 3.0 is that I've deleted like 40 or 50% of my code, even more I think. It's at least 50%, just of things that I didn't need. And I wasn't even that deep into abstractions to begin with, but the problems that I'm solving are entirely removed from the whole, like industry standard programming patterns and all that stuff. Those are really just distractions from the actual problem that you're trying to solve. Yeah, this was kind of the point in the Coding Jesus. I'm not sure whether I find any particular screenshot that is important. I mean, he talks a lot about why these things are bad, and I don't know what these code here, and whether a Boolean, whether you want to have an int or a Boolean for a value that is just true or false, and all that stuff is just so tiresome. It's like literally junior level code arguing. It's like arguing in tabs versus spaces. Tabs are obviously correct, by the way. And if you have done this for at least 10 years, you immediately recognize those discussions as tiresome and useless, because they are so far removed from the things that you actually care about normally. If you have those problems, you should ask yourself why you have those problems. Yeah, right. This is what this was also the point that Destiny made. Like, who cares how bad the code is if it compiles, you know? And if you ever wonder why everything in a computer is kind of broken and only half works half the time, that's because we have built systems that are so complicated that we don't understand them anymore when we think we do. But we really don't. And most of these things are just trade-offs that in the end bite you. And here's a good point about technical debt, that this code might signify technical debt to a certain extent. It does look like code that is kind of unwieldy and hard to deal with on the long-term axis, but that might be the case, that might not be the case. I can see a total expert like Jonathan Blow being just fine with those trade-offs. It's like just the fact that you're having this discussion is like the biggest red flag, basically. If you're arguing about these kinds of things, then you shouldn't be surprised when experienced developers don't really care to engage with you, and all you get is like people like Destiny passing judgment, or suddenly a code Jesus turns up and scolds you about code cleanliness and stuff like that. It's because you're still a beginner, and expert developers have moved so far beyond that when they see you caring about these things, they just exit the room, close the door quietly, and assume that in 5 or 10 years you might have figured out a few more important things to say, some things that are more interesting than what you're saying right now. So, yeah.